Times Influence Initiative.
What started off as a mission to educate and empower has sparked a financial revolution. Kotak Mutual Fund presents SIP Day, an investor education initiative with ET Now, a mega platform where experts meet investors to share knowledge and draw a map towards financial progress. In the third edition, with the theme Picking the Right SIP, SIP Day aims to bring India's professional wealth managers to disseminate the benefits of investing early and investing correctly.
So Nilesh, I think the power of compounding something which this audience is well aware of. The concept of SIP, I think, is like Father Day, birthday and SIP Day. I think it's visible right now. Taking a pledge to invest is the first step. But taking a step in the right direction and doing a smart SIP or Sahi SIP or right SIP, I think is the second step.
Nikunj, we are a heterogeneous country. There are today 1.7 crore investors who have invested in equity mutual funds, either via SIP or otherwise. There is probably 25 crore Indians who still have to invest into equity market. So for them, normal conventional SIP is the right SIP. But in this kind of audience where people have understood SIP by and large, they need to move one step further. For someone, it could be simple top-up. You started with a 5,000 rupee SIP. Your income has moved up. Now you need to make it 7,000, 10,000, 15,000. There could be someone who started with a large cap fund SIP. You have gone through the market volatility, ups and downs. Now it is time to move further into higher risk product, which could be multi-cap fund, which could be mid-cap fund. There may be some small minor set of investors who will be willing to take even a risk on a sectoral fund. So moving to higher level of risk in order to generate higher level of return will be appropriate SIP for informed investors. So India being such a heterogeneous country, people will have to take one step up so that they can generate one step higher return.
Nilesh, in general, the asset allocation for an average Indian is still skewed in favor of real estate and gold. We all know that. What should be a very basic thumb rule of asset allocation?
So the thumb rule continues that 100 minus your age should be your risk allocation of assets. But every 40 years of age person does not have same risk profile. Some 40-year person might be very aggressive in risk-taking. Some 40-year person might be very conservative in risk-taking. So it's important for you to use the thumb rule, but also use your risk profile. This is also an informed set of audience. So one, if we create a 2x2 model, on one side I will put my risk profile and my investment objective. And on second side, I will put valuation of the market. So if my risk profile, let's say, is saying 60% equity and real estate and gold allocation, and 40% fixed income allocation, I will tinker around with that, looking at whether gold is attractive to invest, whether equity is attractive to invest, whether real estate is attractive to invest. So on a 2x2 model, one side is investment objective, one side is risk profile, then comes the valuation of the market, and combination of that gives you your asset allocation profile, and that will create how much money you will make.
So that's the whole concept of right SIP. I'm just going to wrap up our today's theme. SIP karo, magar sahi SIP karo. Thank you all for coming.
Moving ahead, a panel of experts got together to discuss the importance of choosing the right systematic investment plan.
Now that we know it's the SIP route, where do we begin? And Rupa, I want to start with you because earlier when we were chatting, you said identify who are you, what are your needs. How do I understand what my needs are? Is there a process in which I need to select, okay, point A, point 2, point 3, point 4? Because I may want those diamond solitaires, but someone else may want a house, someone else may be saving up for a holiday.
I think those needs are something which all of us have within ourselves. I think each of it can be planned if you sit with someone. It could be a financial advisor or it could be anyone that you can help you achieve those goals. I think the first thing is to sit and analyze what's your ability to achieve that and how long it takes to achieve. Most of the time we want gratification immediately and say that, for example, if I want to invest today and I want the money to double in the next 6 months and I'll be able to achieve it goal, it doesn't happen. It happens over a period of time. So every investment process has to have a goal and that goal has to have a time. If without that, I don't think we'll be able to. And what does SIP do is able to achieve those goals in 5 years, 6 years, 10 years to achieve all your aspirations and your dreams.
Ashish, why is it important to identify what goal am I saving for? Why is it so critical?
So see, understand, investment is like a journey. So, and journeys can be short, it can be medium, it can be long. So if I've come from Jaipur, so if I've come from, Jaipur to here, I'm like, I can't buy a rickshaw. So I had to take a plane. But when coming to this place, I had to take a rickshaw. So depending on the distance, so if I have a long distance, I have to have a different product. If I have a short distance, I have to have a different product. And not every product is meant for you. So, for example, if I'm planning for my, let's say, holiday, so I probably would not choose a volatile product. But if I'm planning for my daughter's, let's say, higher education or a wedding, which is probably 10, 15 years down the line, I better be in a volatile product that's going to break inflation and give me better return. So understanding goals is very important because you need to travel from point A where you are to point B where you really want to be in tomorrow.
Valmiki, how important is the role of a financial advisor to really handhold people, first-timers, through the process and through their investment for a lifelong process?
More importantly, from an investment perspective, if a person is very convinced that equities is the way, what people generally look at is how equities have performed in the past and what kind of wealth it has created. But what is extremely important to understand along with this is that it does come along with certain risks. It does come along with certain factors which need to be borne in mind. So if you are wanting to be an equity investor and you want to reach a particular level or say, for example, create wealth for yourself, you need to be very, very disciplined in that manner first of all. You have to decide where you want to reach. So if you have a goal in place, how long will it take? What is your risk appetite, which is a very important factor to be decided, and which you can certainly do that with the help of a financial advisor, or if you're very clear as to what your risk profile is, you only then need to choose an asset which is equities. More than that, when you talk about being a disciplined investor, you have to stick to your investment strategy, which is an SIP, and you have to ensure that you let that SIP continue over longer periods of time. Because what tends to happen is that when markets tend to become a little volatile, there is a lot of talk and chatter in the markets that in markets are not going to do well. People get very, very fearful. So these are things which people generally don't bear in mind when they are getting into the equity mode of investing. So having said all of these factors, when a new person comes in and decides to give us some money, that okay, here's the money, you handle it, we have to be very, very clear and categorical about these things before helping him start invest. And irrespective of where the markets are, how the funds are performing, very, very important that a person remains committed to his decision of reaching a particular goal. Only then wealth can be created, only then your goals can be achieved.
Lakshmi, is there an age to start? I mean, do you have to start early? What if someone is 50 and 60 and it's late realization ki chalo, now I have to start SIP? Is it too late for them?
I think my son has just turned 13, okay, and he already has an SIP. So what's an age to start? But the point is that there is no age. The moment, in fact, if some of you must be aware, or most of you are aware, the moment there is a child in the womb, there are schools in South Bombay where you have to register the name. So my point is, for a being which has not even come on this earth, if you are worried about 3 years hence, this we are talking about planning for 20, 30, 40 years hence. So I think there is nothing called age. You can start whenever you want. And as I said, the critical thing is that today education is becoming expensive. So if your goal is education, age is not a consideration. If the goal is marriage, again, not a consideration. Depends on when you want to get married. You broadly have a sense. Likewise, if the goal is buying a house, anything, I mean, it could be, as I said, the beauty is link it to a particular outcome. So as I said, I do this with my son, and it's very, very basic, okay? I link every action of his to an outcome. You do 20 sums and you get $500, or you do this entire exercise and you get $1,000. It works brilliantly. And if I just extend this analogy and I say that, okay, you know what, I want to do a holiday, and I have a colleague who does this, by the way, okay? Most of us, all of us are middle class families, so if we want to achieve, so he wants to do a holiday in 2019, he's doing his planning right now. The only thing is you cannot estimate returns, but for that a conjecture is very good, as long as you are not way off. So I think age is in the mind.
We're going to take a few quick questions from the audience.
Do we have any stop loss for mutual funds?
In financial world, if markets or the schemes have given 100 return, average return of investor is less than 30. Okay, तो अगर स्कीम ने 10%, लेट्स से म्यूचुअल फंड स्कीम ने इंडिया में 10% रिटर्न दिया है, तो पिछले 20 साल में निवेशक के रिटर्न 3 आए हैं. वो 10 भी नहीं ले पाते. मैं बात एवरेजेस की कर रहा हूँ, मैं बेस्ट की नहीं कर रहा. The fundamental mistake that people make while making investment is that they make returns as their goals, not goals are in their personal life. और वो रिटर्न चेस कर रहे होते हैं, और रिटर्न हमेशा बैक में अच्छे लगते हैं, फ्रंट में नहीं अच्छे लगते. तो ये जो क्वेश्चंस उठकर आते हैं, चाहे वो यहाँ से हो चाहे आपने उठाओ, वो बाय एंड लार्ज इसलिए कि हम मैक्सिमाइजेशन करना चाहते हैं हमारे रिटर्न्स का, इसलिए वो टेक्निकल एस्पेक्ट में बातें होती हैं. टू मोस्ट ऑफ द इन्वेस्टर्स दैट आई कम एंड मीट, they are doctors, they are lawyers, they are grocery, they are running their shop, they are busy in their personal life. They care about their dreams. And I would urge each and everyone to first talk about dreams rather than talking about returns. Look at what you need. And all of us have been saying goals, goals, and goals. But unfortunately, returns are becoming goals and not goals are becoming goals.
Thank you all so much. I guess we've identified how to select the right SIP. Thank you so much.
SIP Day provided first-time and seasoned investors with an opportunity to learn the basics of investing through systematic investment plans. A panel of experts got together to discuss the best ways to achieve long-term goals by appropriately allocating assets.
The topic of the discussion is achieving your goals through asset allocation. Now, what is asset allocation? I'll just give you a data point. Over the last almost 18 months, all the money on a monthly basis that's coming in through SIPs into the market, 90% of that on a monthly basis is being directed to equity mutual funds. Manish, let's just start off with some opening thoughts. Give our viewers a sense of what are the benefits of asset allocation.
एसेट एलोकेशन आप यही समझिए कि वो आपके पोर्टफोलियो के लिए इट्स द राइट इन्वेस्टमेंट हेल्थ दैट द पोर्टफोलियो रिक्वायर्स. सो एसेट एलोकेशन वेरी सिंपल इज नथिंग बट वंस यू हैव डिसाइडेड आपके इन्वेस्टेबल कॉर्पस क्या है, आपकी क्या टेन्योर ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट्स है, एंड व्हाट इज योर बेस्ड ऑन योर रिस्क टेकिंग एबिलिटी, how much you would like to allocate your 100 rupees into equity, fixed income, and maybe any other asset class. So I think the whole principle of asset allocation is to see to it that you're diversified and across various investment horizons, various investment classes for a long period of time. And I think and sticking to that goal is the most important other aspect.
Right. Rajesh, आप 700 families को advise करते हो wealth management पे.
Yes, ma'am.
आप बताएं, what is your advice to them when it comes to asset allocation?
My advice of asset allocation to my investor is that once you decide the asset allocation based on your financial goals, based on your risk tolerance, your long-term time horizon, and devise and diversify your portfolio in different schemes, mutual funds, equity, large cap, mid cap. Then you stick to it and maintain it dynamically. Dynamically, I means once you reach up near to your goal, you may require to change the asset allocation. Unless you are near to your goal, you need not to worry about it. Like one of my investors just asked a question, what is the stop loss in mutual fund? So according to me, the stop loss in mutual fund is that once you are near to your goal, then you must have some stop loss for your equity investments, because if like in last 5 years, the market has given a decent run up. Now, and one is very near to one's financial goals, maybe which is coming to in next 1 year. So he must have some stop loss so that he may not remain invested in equities, and if equity goes down, so he may not lose that value. That's asset allocation, I mean to say, my investor.
Right, but there are two assets only, Abhinav, equities and debt. Gold mein itna aata nahi mutual funds ke through. So is it about investing in balance funds? Because मेरे को तो options limited ही लगते हैं. एक तो balance funds हैं जहाँ पे दोनों asset classes पे exposure लिया जाता है, और दूसरा debt funds, fixed income products जो हैं. So आप कैसे उनको advise करोगे कि देखो अभी rates ऊपर जा रहे हैं तो return better मिल सकता है? Because remember they also have the choice of going back to FDs.
See, I believe in the concept of bucketing. So bucketing basically means that depending on when your goal is coming forward, so suppose you have a goal which you need money for in the say next 6 months or the next 12 months, so that's a separate bucket. Then there's another bucket which you can use maybe in the next 2 to 3 years, and then there could be another bucket which you will need the money after maybe 5 years or so. So you have to keep these buckets in mind, and accordingly, based on your goals, how and when you need to achieve them, the product selection happens. So to answer your question, we have very interesting products on the debt side. We have low duration funds, which typically invest in bonds or corporate securities of less than a year. So those are ideal to meet the first bucket's requirement. So when we discuss with corporates, we can kind of understand their cash flow requirements, and we accordingly suggest for a low duration fund for the first bucket. Then you can go for an equity savings fund, which is a combination of arbitrage, equity, and debt for the second bucket. And then, of course, you have the balance or balance advantage fund, which takes an automatic asset allocation call. So there are already products available apart from just equity funds. So, recurring deposit as a concept in India is very popular. And we Indians have kind of moved that money into SIP, into equity funds. We should have actually focused a bit more on doing this RD money, moving the RD money into, say, low duration funds first, equity savings, balance funds, and then probably into equity funds for long-term goals. So there is still a huge market available. There is still a huge requirement for short-term goal planning, say vacations, and that can be achieved through SIPs and low duration funds or equity saving funds.
Investors often ask me, Madam, kitna long term? Kitna long term? I mean, long term investment बोलते हैं mutual funds में, kitna long term? Because अगर आपको घर खरीदना है, तो 10 साल में आपको पेमेंट करनी होगी, तो 20 साल थोड़ी ना वेट करेंगे जब रिटर्न आएगा. तो आप ऐसे क्वेश्चंस को कैसे एड्रेस करते हैं कि हाउ कैन दे इन्वेस्ट इन नॉट जस्ट इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड्स बट डिफरेंट काइंड ऑफ म्यूचुअल फंड्स, सो दैट एक बेस बन जाए जहाँ पे जब उनको रिटर्न्स लेने हो किसी भी पर्पस के लिए, तो वो किसी भी टाइम पे एक सिस्टमैटिक विड्रॉल प्लान के थ्रू मनी को विड्रॉ भी कर सकते हैं. बिकॉज लॉन्ग टर्म आजकल के टाइम में, आई मीन केरला फ्लड जैसे हो गए, तो कैन बी अ वेरी मिसलीडिंग a term more used and abused, so to speak. आप बताएं ना.
So what happens is that essentially when a long term comes, it's when people's expectations and returns don't match, people start in a waiting game. That essentially happens in the direct equity also. If I have bought a stock at 100 and it corrects to 40 or 50, then the waiting game begins. Stop loss targets gets revised every day, and the stop loss targets revised on a downward trend rather. Okay, then the value averaging comes, and then finally it becomes that this will be passed to my generation. Okay, so that's essentially long term, especially for active equity investors. When it comes to mutual funds, the long term is essentially mapped to your goal which you have designed for yourself. If you want a house at the end of 10 years, then the amount which you need to put in today is calculated beforehand and told you that please madam put this amount aside every month. And at the end of 10 years, majority of the times you will be able to retrieve the amount and pay for your dream house. So when it comes to, we always say that goal, we plan a goal. I think the essence is that we miss to revisit the goals. Today you start your career, you said 1-bedroom house is enough. Then you may say, okay, I'm doing pretty well for myself. I may look at a 2-bedroom house. So you need to revisit the goal. You need to revisit with your financial plan, which most of the times, perhaps in that entire journey of our working, we fail to, revisit our goals. So I think mutual fund has been able to answer those delicate questions, and moreover, in a tax efficient way. So that is more important because you have paid hard-earned money tax already on it. So may as well now invest it in such a way that it is more tax friendly to you.
This is what our guests and our panelists had to say about, achieving your financial goals through asset allocation. But I'd love to have a short Q&A session because we are here to answer your queries. So could we have some questions from the audience?
Yeah, rising interest rate cycle, value of my holdings will keep on dropping. Now, in this scenario, does it make any sense to continue with the SIP in that scheme just to maintain the asset allocation?
The whole point of SIP is that you buy even on dips as well. So in a rising interest rate scenario, you'll see that bond prices are going down. So in a way, you are also buying on dips. So that also kind of fulfills the whole purpose of using your SIP. In fact, in debt funds, you should look at the low duration or the ultra short term kind of funds where in a rising interest rate scenario, the variation in the bond prices will not be that much. The volatility will be less and the NAV will not fall in the same proportion like a long-term debt fund will fall. So even in a rising interest rate scenario, you can comfortably do an SIP in a ultra short term or a low duration fund. You will still meet your short-term needs with that.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much. Hope this session was useful for all of you.
Next week on Kotak Mutual Fund presents SIP Day.
Instead of becoming long-term investor, people end up becoming short-term trader. Instead of having patience, people want instant gratification.
How do you look at this volatility is what is going to differentiate between a long-term investor and a short-term investor, and also how much wealth you're going to create in the long term?
Next 25 years, I'm going to see 5 general elections, 25 union budgets, 100 credit policy reviews, maybe 6 US elections. For how many times I'm going to worry about these things?
Times Influence Initiative.